Un cordial saludo para nuestros seguidores en la Cámara de Comercio Colombiana AmCham Colombia. Hoy estamos con un tema que es de mucha actualidad, especialmente para quienes viajan con frecuencia hacia los Estados Unidos. Y ustedes seguramente han escuchado previamente al respecto, y es el Preclearance Facility. Para eso estamos aquí con el señor Clint Lamm del US Customs and Border Protection, quien nos va a explicar un poco más a profundidad en qué consiste este Preclearance Facility, cómo podemos acceder a esto y cómo nos va a beneficiar en todo el proceso de viajes. Mr. Lamm, welcome to AmCham Colombia. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much.
First of all, can you explain to us what is the Preclearance Facility? What does it mean for travelers?
So preclearance process is the U.S. border inspection process that we do every day in the United States for passengers arriving, except that process happens outside of the United States in the countries where we have these international agreements. And so, for example, here in El Dorado Airport, what we're looking to do is establish a preclearance program here so that anybody traveling from El Dorado Airport to the United States, currently the top 5 airports are Miami, Fort Lauderdale, JFK, Houston, and Orlando, that they will actually be processed here in El Dorado before they ever take off. That way, upon arrival, when they go to these large airports, historically and traditionally right now, travelers have to stand in line upon arrival in Miami, which sometimes can be a long wait, can be a long process. They also have to go and collect their baggage, which could be another long wait. And then if they have connecting flights, there's a time limitation there. When we are able to do that process here, when the passenger then arrives to the United States, they will arrive as if they are a domestic traveler. You will not see Customs and Border Protection. If you're connecting, you won't even see your bag because you don't have to collect it and have it cleared by Customs. And then you also will not need to be cleared by TSA, the Aviation Security Screening Agency, because preclearance, when passengers pass through preclearance, they are already meeting the TSA requirements for aviation security screening. So again, upon arrival, you're a domestic traveler. You can go on directly to your destination. You can connect to your flight. And when you're doing that, you don't have to collect your baggage, and you also don't have to be screened by TSA again.
Basically, this will make easier to arrive to the United States. Does travelers in Bogota have to arrive earlier than today? We expect today that to be at the airport 2 or 3 hours before your flight. It's going to be enough time to do all this process here in Bogota, or do you need extra time here?
Well, the travelers will need a little bit more time to process their preclearance because it is now an added step to go through before you get on your aircraft and depart. So you will still need to check in. You will still need to turn in your baggage with the airline. You'll still need to go through aviation security screening and Migración exit for Colombia. And then you will then go through the preclearance process. It's not a significant additional time because our preclearance processes are very efficient. We use the most modern technology, and we operate more efficiently than the United States ports because we have new preclearance locations. The ports, and for example, in Miami, JFK, these are facilities that have been around for many decades that have limitations on their facilities. So there is some added time and the smart traveler knows this, to arrive to the airport earlier for that process. But then once you clear preclearance, once you are done with us, you're able to walk around the airport down by the gates, and we also will have the awareness of what our processing times are. So anybody who arrives to the airport and goes through the layers of security, they can still maneuver around or move around the airport to utilize the stores, the restaurants, because what we always make sure is that we have some advertisements to show how long is the CBP process, so that the public knows how much time they have to get to the CBP before their flight takes off.
Great. How does the traveler can apply for this? Do you need to check in or apply on a website, or how does it work actually for the traveler?
So for the traveler to process through preclearance, there is no application. The only thing you need to have is an airline ticket on a U.S. flight that is going to the United States, and as long as that airline is a participant in the preclearance program. So currently out of Bogota here, there's about 1.4 million travelers last year that traveled between El Dorado Airport and all of the U.S. airports. So if all of those airlines the U.S. carriers and Avianca, for example, are all participants in the preclearance program, then anybody who buys a ticket on any of those airlines to travel to the United States, they will be pre-cleared automatically.
So Avianca is the only one airline doing this, and plus the American Airlines, the
So-
U.S. Airlines.
So Avianca is the biggest carrier here in Bogota. So we really welcome we want all of the airlines to participate, but certainly we're most welcoming to Avianca. It's the national airline, carries the most travelers. The most of their traffic goes into Miami Airport. That's a very busy airport. They have multiple terminals and the wait times can be a little challenging, certainly during peak seasons. To be able to process all of those passengers here, we certainly want to be able to provide that service to every carrier, and Avianca is just as important as anybody else, as any other U.S. carrier, for sure. Absolutely.
And when this will start to happen? Do you have a date for this?
Well, we're excited about the progress that we've made since with my arrival here. I've had a number of meetings with the Colombian government, with the airport authority, with the airlines, with IATA, and now with AmCham. So very pleased with our meetings and the welcome that we've received. With the government, we have agreed in principle on what the language of a bilateral agreement will look like. We're now have to begin the translation of that agreement into both English and Spanish so that they match formal agreement text. And then those agreements need to be reviewed through both governments to make sure that we have a complete agreement through all of the different departments. And finally will result in a signature, a signing of that agreement. And I expect that agreement will be signed sometime by this summer, because we have, by and large, the reception from the Colombian government is they're extremely supportive, and we're well aware that President Duque is highly supportive of this program as well. And so by this summer, we are prepared to sign the agreement. And after that, we'll go into the ratification process here. As a treaty, it needs to be ratified within Colombia through the Congress, and then a judicial review, as the normal process is. We don't have an exact timeline on that, but I hope that with the support we get from the industry and from the government, that process will be smooth. And then at the same time, we look to work with the airport authority, OPAIN, on what their facilities requirements will consist of. And right now they're looking at using existing infrastructure and doing renovations in spaces that they believe that aren't utilized fully currently. They can turn those into pre-clearance space, and putting up walls and moving the gate spaces around, but very little actual architectural changes. So if we have that moving at the same time as we have the ratification process, then we're hopefully within 18 months or so, or 20 or 2 years. At the most, we would have a process that is ready, a program that is ready to go operational.
That's great news. You were talking before about the Global Entry Program. How the Preclearance Facility and the Global Entry Program will match or can work together to facilitate again for travelers to arrive to the United States?
Right, so Global Entry Program is a trusted traveler program, and Colombia has recently joined that program with many other countries that are members of that with the United States. The U.S. has about 7.1 million members in that program now. In that program itself, Global Entry allows members who have applied and been approved to travel in a much more expedited manner through a U.S. border inspection. Right now, there's only about 3,100 members that are Colombian nationals. So we are really looking forward, as an agency, CBP, to grow the numbers of members from Colombia. One of the challenges with that, though, is that when you apply online, you provide all your information, and you pay the $100 fee, is that you have to complete the process to be approved by undergoing an inspection or an interview that has to happen in person. Well, those interviews can only happen in person in the United States currently. So it's a little bit of a burdensome process to have to complete that process, but you have to do it while you travel to the United States, and you have to make an appointment. Sometimes our appointment queues can be up to 6 months or longer because there's so much high volume. But where preclearance will be able to support that, not only will preclearance here in El Dorado have dedicated lanes to expeditiously process Global Entry members alone, so specific service to those members. In addition to that, anyone who has applied here in Colombia and is only waiting that personal interview, we'll be able to provide that interview here in El Dorado and get that approval and that completed step done here, and so that they can become a member and immediately begin traveling and using the program even upon that trip. When they come through preclearance, We can enroll them right there, and they will be able to use their first border transition right there on the spot the day they get approved.
Great. In your presentation, you also show how many countries has at this moment the Preclearance Facility, and we saw that Colombia will be the first one in Latin America to have this process. Why did you choose Colombia for this?
Well, so we opened up we announced a solicitation period in 2016 and asked globally if there were any airports or governments that would be interested in discussing a preclearance program with us. So one of the interested parties was El Dorado Airport, and then followed shortly by the government, saying that they were interested, the government of Colombia was interested as well. So we came down here and met with the airport authority. We did surveys and reviews of with the volume and the workloads happening here. We met with the government, and we identified that it is a perfect fit. So not only does the United States and Colombia have a long history, going back decades, of working very closely together, a very close relationship in many different things, not only national security and law enforcement and information sharing, but also in trade. A lot of trade between our two countries. There's significant familial ties, family ties between our countries. This is an area where it's a natural fit as well, because we'll be bringing the borders between Colombia and the United States together. And it'll be happening right here in the capital city at El Dorado Airport, where the highest volume of travel comes and goes out of this airport, including transit travel from all over South America. So we looked at these things, and it seems to be a natural fit. Not only do we have amazingly close ties and relationships with the Colombian people and the Colombian government, but the volume here is significant. We'll be able to address the workload that is now impacts our operations in the gateway airports in Miami and JFK, and we'll be able to take those passengers out of those queues, because now they'll be processed here. So it's a benefit to reducing our workloads at the gateway airports. But in addition to that, we're addressing all of the concerns with border crossing issues here in partnership with Colombia. So any issues that come up, we'll be able to resolve them and address them together. And I would say lastly that Bogota is a major transit hub, and certainly for Avianca. They do a lot of transit business out of the rest of South America. And a lot of those folks are transiting through El Dorado to the United States. So preclearance, my operations were very experienced in not only dealing with and processing originating passengers from that location, but also processing passengers that are transiting from other countries through that airport, through that preclearance process, and onwards to the United States. It's a big benefit, and it provides opportunities for significant growth in the in-transit market, as well as addressing the origination markets, as well as for business and tourism and other areas that are passengers that are coming to Bogota as a destination.
Great. And finally, can you tell us how many Colombians flew to the United States last year, for example?
Yeah, so in 2019, as I said, it was about 1.4 million travelers came from Bogota to the United States to a number of airports. About 48% of those were Colombian nationals. And that's only visitors for pleasure. Another 5% or so of non-U.S. citizens were traveling on business. So I believe probably a lot of those were Colombian nationals as well. So you're roughly looking at nearly 50% of all the travelers, nearly 700,000 travelers, were Colombian nationals coming out of the airport. I would just add to that, though, is a significant portion of the rest includes U.S. citizens and legal residents of the United States. So within that group of people, considering, again, I go back to the point I made about the close family ties we have, and I used to live and work in South Florida and Miami. So I know that a number of those U.S. citizens actually have their heritage is in Colombia, and certainly a lot of those are the residents. The legal residents of the United States are Colombians as well. So there's a significant number of people who actually have very close ties to their Colombian nationality that are even in the U.S. citizen block and the legal resident block. So we're providing that service. I mean, there's a number of passengers that are transiting through from other South American countries, but a significant portion of those are the Colombian nationals. Great,
thank you. Mr. Lamm, we want to thank you for this explanation. There's very good news for travelers from Colombia to the United States. Muchas gracias a todos nuestros seguidores por esta oportunidad de escuchar estas grandes noticias para los viajes y el turismo entre Colombia y Estados Unidos, y muy pronto estaremos en nuestra transmisión para contarles más información sobre la relación comercial entre Colombia y Estados Unidos. Cordial saludo.